Help support AMTV by becoming a patron, an AMTV staff member, and following us over on Twitter.
Hi there guys, it's Adam Martyn here, and welcome back to another video. Now today, I wanted to talk about a very interesting idea that's been mooted that could see the UK's main terrestrial broadcast channels come together. This was alerted to me by a viewer of mine on Twitter, or X. This is Matthew Z. Miller, who pointed me to this article from the Mail Online. And it's got a quite interesting title, for it says BBC, ITV and Channel 4 would have to band together to compete with streaming giants like Netflix and Amazon Prime. Now, that suggestion has been bandied about, you could argue, for quite a few years now, maybe even close to a decade. Ever since the streaming giants took off and really hit their stride during the 2010s, you can argue there's always been a case made that the traditional channels, the long-standing channels here in the UK, need to band together. But it's interesting that this is coming from an ex-broadcasting chief. Let's get into this article a little bit. Public service broadcasters will need to merge together if they want to compete with the biggest international streamers, according to the former chair of ITV. Sir Peter Bazalgette suggested the BBC, ITV, Channel 4 and Channel 5 would have to band together if they want to rival the likes of Amazon Prime, Netflix and Disney+. He said it wasn't possible to go up against these sites as one small streaming service. Now, again, you can look that each of these channels has their own either video on demand or streaming platform. The BBC has iPlayer, ITV has ITVX, Channel 4 has Channel 4, confusingly, and Channel 5 has My5. So all of them have their own equivalents. Some of them have paid tiers like ITVX Premium. Channel 4 has a premium tier, I think, as well. So they each have their own little services, but I guess do they put a dent into Netflix, Amazon, Disney+, etc.? Arguably not. Asked about the future of public service broadcasting, he told the Beeb Watch podcast, "I'm optimistic that we'll have the political will and the national will to curate and facilitate public service broadcasting, its values for, let's say, years ahead. And one of the ways that will happen is to have a government that believes in it. And so far, this government appears to believe in its values and what it delivers." That, I believe, is relating back to the fact that now with the new Labour government we have, they're saying they're committed to the licence fee, committed to the BBC. We did a whole video on that topic if you want to check that out. But it seems there has been a shift in terms of government to the approach of public service broadcasters as well. Continuing on, Bazalgette said, "We'll see about that. I do think, though, there are going to have to be many changes. One of the main changes I think there are going to have to be is across the whole of Europe, actually, in terms of domestic broadcasts, many mergers, because you cannot, with one small streaming service, compete against the major international streamers. You need to have a bigger commissioning pot of money to make programs that people want to go to your service for. And you need to have a bigger library that they're going to enjoy when they're subscribers to your service." Now, all of this is, you could argue pretty standard fare. It's like for any streaming service, no matter who owns it. Original programming has proven to be a big hit. Netflix pioneered that in the early 2010s and others have done it as well. But it is also that back catalogue. What is on your service that people are going to rewatch? You could argue Disney Plus has the leg up with all its animated films over the last, decades and decades worth that people will go back to constantly. And I think some of the channels already do this to a degree. I mean, look at the BBC iPlayer, which has now curated the Whoniverse, so you can watch pretty much all of Classic Who and Modern Who as well. So some of the services are already starting to do this individually, but I guess what Peter Bazalgette is suggesting is that needs to be an even bigger pot by all these mergers. He said on the launch of Freely, a free new online way of getting all the public service broadcasting on one place, was just the beginning. As he says, "I think there need to be further mergers, and it'll be interesting to see what happens to Channel 5 now that it looks like the owners, Paramount, are selling out, because I don't think it's going to be a priority for the new American owners. It may well change hands in the next 6 to 9 months. Now, firstly, Freely, we've talked about Freely ad nauseum on this channel. It has launched now. You are able to go and access it, particularly if you get a new TV that is freely equipped. And yeah, this was, a sort of evolution of Freeview, combining all those public broadcasters, public service broadcasters into one place. I do understand, though, what he means that that's just the beginning. Whilst it is good to have this offering of Freely that curates them all, maybe there does need to be that one step further. Maybe if they did combine all of their content libraries, what if they launched their own streaming site under one name? As you could sort of say BritBox was maybe the early beginnings of that. That was created by both the BBC and ITV, which are arguably the two biggest of the public service broadcasters here in the UK. Certainly the longest standing. And whilst that offer did significantly better overseas in the US than it did compared to here in the UK, it was sort of this idea of companies banding together. It wasn't a merger, it was just a cooperation. But I guess, would it work though? I'm just trying to think. A merger of all of these companies into one entity, what would that be called? How would it operate? How would you differentiate the programs? That would be undoing a lot of, decades of public goodwill and familiarity, brand familiarity with these broadcasters. In regards to Channel 5, yes, Paramount are the current owners, but it seems like Bazalgette thinks it's not a priority with the new American owners and that it might change hands and all this sort of stuff. I think Channel 5 will continue on as it's always done ever since 1997, regardless of who owns it. But I get what he means. Could Channel 5 within the next 5 or 10 years end up folding? Could it be wound down? Could it be merged into something else? I mean, at the moment, I can't see Channel 5 merging with another one of the main ones. Channel 4 may seem the likely one, but I can't see that happening. So if it becomes a low priority, maybe they might end up discontinuing Channel 5 eventually. I hope that doesn't happen. I think having Channel 5 alongside the others is good for competition, it's good for variety, all that sort of stuff. But this does raise an eyebrow or two for me, thinking, well, how on earth is that going to work then if it becomes low priority? Will it wind down? Research has shown that 3/4 of Britons now have at least one streaming service, whilst more than half have 3 or more. Good God, more than half have 3 or more? That's more than 50% of the population has 3 or more streaming services. Is that necessary? It's expensive. With around 12.9 million users in the UK, Amazon Prime Video is one of the most popular platforms, with a monthly subscription that will set you back around £8.99 a month. While you can sign up to Prime Video on its own for $5.99 a month, you won't get the other benefits that come with Prime, like one-day and same-day delivery. Disney Plus users have been paying monthly bills of £10.99 since November 2023. Yes, I've been feeling that. Whilst Netflix users saw the price of a basic plan going up by £1 a month to $7.99 at the end of last year. So, just to touch on Amazon Prime Video a moment, yes, Amazon is this mega company, one of the biggest companies in the world, and by tying in those other benefits like the Prime delivery, let's face it, we all like convenience, we all like getting stuff either in a day or on the same day, so sort of working those benefits into a higher tiered subscription for Prime Video, I think is very clever on their part, and probably why a lot of people go for that option. But, 3 or more than half of the population, supposedly, of the UK have 3 or more streaming services. That's a lot. That's a lot to pay for as well. Most of these are monthly subscriptions as well. It sort of ties back into this whole physical media thing. And we did do a video recently about how physical media isn't necessarily dead and might be on the up in some places here in the UK. Instead of paying monthly, just get the films, and movies you want on physical media, man. It's cheaper. I know that's harder in some cases, but that's an astounding figure. But ultimately, this merger plan, I mean, the BBC and ITV have been working together a lot recently anyway, so a merger between the two of them, that would be historic. I mean, these two entities that were rivals for decades and decades and only really started collaborating, in the last 10, 15 years or so, for them to merge would be enormous. But then again, how would that work? Would that follow the BBC's model of having no adverts and be completely, publicly funded, or would it go down the ITV route and be more commercial? Because that's the thing, ITV, Channel 4, Channel 5, they all run commercials. They all make their money from advertising revenue. That would be a somewhat easier transition if those three merge, because they all operate under the same sort of commercial format. The BBC's the outlier because it's not funded by advertising, because it's funded by the license fee, amongst other things. That would make it increasingly difficult. Or maybe, who knows, after 2027, if the license fee is completely abolished after 2027, maybe that would make it easier. If the BBC then becomes funded by, I don't know, private entities or even indeed commercials, then that merger would be even better. But I mean, the way it stands, I can sort of see what Peter Bazalgette is coming at, that if all of these big UK brands, these big UK channels merge together, that could create one UK super brand. But then really, would it be like any other streaming service? There'd probably be a monthly fee. The amount of content on there would be at the whim of the broadcaster and all that sort of stuff. So whilst I can see some positives of a merger, my gut's saying ultimately it might not be as beneficial as we might think. And, the TV landscape is changing all the time. Whilst traditional TV is certainly on the decline, I think there's no doubt about that, I think there's still a lot of merit into traditional TV. There's still a lot of scope, particularly when it comes to live events. You could argue, nothing handles live events better than traditional television. So a big merger between the BBC, ITV, Channel 4 and Channel 5. Do I think it's on the cards and likely to happen, say, by the end of the 2020s? I'm going to put my claims out there and say no. I think the channels want to keep their own brand, their own identity, their own independence, if you like, for as long as humanly possible, as long as they can. They want to keep that going, but, you know, will there come a time where one or more of them might buckle and end up having to merge with someone else just to stay alive? I mean, potentially, yeah. We'll just have to see what the future holds. But that does about do it for this video. I just wanted to explore this topic a bit more and see what could come from it, potential benefits and downsides. Let me know your thoughts as well. I want to know, do you think this idea will succeed? Do you think this is doomed for failure? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like on it. It does help us out. And subscribe to us here at AMTV because we'd love to have you aboard. In the meantime, I've been Adam Martyn from AMTV. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Thank you to our patrons for helping to support the show, and a special thank you to Macra, Ethan Carberry-Holt, Bruce Danton, Derek Chambers, Shaun Knock, Daud Khan, Liam De-Maine, Trev Hughes, Deck, Evanhart41, Jen, Tim Ripley, Mr. Eurovision 1986, Ted Elliott, John Wakefield, and Marnan L. Thurman, our AMTV staff members.